Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It's your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing an SIHH 2013 launch that wasn't exactly part of the Jaeger-LeCoultre Aston Martin Amvox series. It was a existing JLC watch inspired by Aston Martin, and as a result, probably the most interesting mainstream JLC watch from that model year. This is the Master Hometime Aston Martin. 40 millimeters in stainless steel, it gains a model-unique black dial with the Aston Martin winged signature. The timepiece is absolutely glorious, universally wearable at 11.9 millimeters thick. It's reasonably short lug-to-lug at 47.9 millimeters, with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. The timepiece sits easily on my wrist. As you can see, it could be a dress watch. It would easily slide underneath the cuff, no problem there. Across the wrist, it's narrow enough that I could recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference. And part of that is also down to the shape of the lugs, which you can see arc down and around the wrist. They don't flare out. So the timepiece is handsome. It's compact, it's universally wearable, and it is very useful as it is a dual time with the date and a rugged sports watch style caliber. Before we get to that, let's get to this, the hardware and the software. You can see the strap is a medium brown with large rectangular scale alligator leather, semi-gloss, monotone stitch, a sheer side showing the layers of leather combined, and there is some bolstering to add a little bit of volume. The buckle is a double deployant stainless steel clasp, so a folding clasp. I always prefer to see this over a pin buckle because it makes it harder to drop the watch while you're putting it on or taking it off. The case band is longitudinally satin finished. The lugs are a lot more tapered and narrower than the master case lugs of the 2000s, and in the early 2010s, JLC really recognized that those older master cases were a little bit brutal. They were lacking in elegance, and this lug profile was the solution. You can see that JLC polishes the tops, satin finishes the side, then includes a little bit of an expanding bevel on the edge of the lugs, and that bevel is intact. We have a JLC logo crown, and then we have a conical bezel that's slightly stepped back from the case band, and then it has a narrow vertical segment and then a long flat conical top leading up to a dial that is all in black. Now, the standard version of this watch had a silver dial, and it wasn't nearly as attractive. The black here appears menacing and glorious. Now, you will note that there is a hidden second time zone and that there is a 24-hour register up at 12 o'clock that allows you to read AM, PM, day or night in your reference time zone. Now, you can see that there is also a date down at 6 o'clock. And if I were to hide, for example, that second hour hand, the watch would have a wonderful bilateral symmetry to it. You could cut it top to bottom and it would be mirrored on each side. In fact, you could cut it side to side, cruciform cut, and it would be almost completely symmetrical along any line of reflection. The fact that you're able to hide that second hour hand when you don't need it is exquisite. You can also see that it's an upscale dial with applique Arabic numerals 9 and 3, applique diamond polished dart style indices, and then outboard loomed pips. So it is a fully loomed dial. You can see at the center, the Dauphine style hands are polished on one side and frosted on the other to better contrast with the black of the dial, as many polished hands disappear on black dials. Now, if you look up at the top, you can see that as I'm adjusting that second time zone hidden underneath the local hour, the 24-hour dial is approaching midnight. So right now, both local and reference time are set to midnight. Now, turn it all over, things get interesting. This was the most rugged JLC movement developed during the 2000s. This is the 975H Auto Tractor. First, let's talk about chronometry. The Master 1000 hours test regulating the watch to no worse than +6 -1 second per 24 hours. The Master 1000 hours goes way past the COSC. It exceeds the timing standards of the COSC. It's a 6-position test, not 5. And of course, it goes on for 1,000 hours, not 2 weeks. I'll also mention that the Master 1000 test includes shock resistance, winding efficiency, power reserve, water resistance. It is a complete test of the assembled watch. Now, you'll note that this is the Auto Tractor caliber because it has a full balance bridge rather than a single-sided balance cock. Due to the experience of IWC using JLC 889 automatics in sports watches during the 90s, JLC realized that its thin, fine, high horology autos were not appropriate for sports watches. So it took a page from the Rolex playbook and it built up a full balance bridge anchored on both sides with a free-sprung index. Alongo made the hairspring for these movements. The winding system went from relatively inefficient bidirectional to a much more efficient unidirectional, and ceramic rotor bearings supplanted the higher drag lubricated steel bearings. We have Spire Cut Gears, which is a profile that was developed by JLC in consortium with a large group of watch brands for the drivetrain, which makes the drivetrain more efficient. A 48-hour power reserve is what you get. You have a hacking or stop seconds function, and of course both 12 and 24-hour independent time zones. You also get, in this 29 joule movement, a true 22-carat winding mass, which is exquisite because most brands today will cheap out and give you 21-carat, 18-carat, or even tungsten. Perish the thought. As you can see, it's a handsomely but mostly machine-executed finish that looks good, and you can also appreciate that JLC actually fires its screws rather than dyeing its screws. So all these screws are fired blue rather than dyed, and the watch is 50 meters water resistant, which is significantly more than the dress watch standard of 20 to 30. So there's a lot to love here in this highly versatile timepiece. Whether you love Aston Martin or not, the watch is just gorgeous, and the Aston Martin branding is discreet. You can see the wings underneath the logo on the dial, and you can see the wings at the base of the case back. And lest you think this is some sort of contrived shotgun marriage of luxury brands, remember this: from the 1920s through the 1990s, Jaeger instruments were featured inside of Aston Martin cars, meaning that this is not just a match made in horological heaven, but it is a reflection of real shared history. Reach out to Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And we are back with the Master Hometime Aston Martin.